Stars of Week 1 for QB Ben Roethlisberger, Pitt 4,466, 504 yards, 2 TDs, 0 INTs. RB Le'Veon Bell, Pitt 13 carries, 48 yards, 2 TDs, 9 catches, 77 yards, 1 TD. DeAndre Hopkins, Howe 11 catches, 149 yards, 2 TDs. Trey Burton, 5 catches, 71 yards, 2 TDs. Ben Roethlisberger appears to have taken the widespread criticism directed his way quite seriously, and now he's ballin'. Roethlisberger cleared the 500-yard mark against the Ravens, while connecting on 2 TD passes. His performance merits top QB honors for this week. We don't have to look far for the week's top RB, as Roethlisberger's teammate Le'Veon Bell found the end zone thrice this past Sunday. Bell as always did his damage in both the run and the pass game, and he remains the league's top RB. The top WR of the week comes to us from Houston, Texas, as DeAndre Hopkins continues to show that he's a top 5 WR, despite who serves as his QB. Hopkins will be a first-round pick next year. No Zach Ertz, no problem, as Trey Burton stepped in and caught 2 of Wentz's TD passes. Burton's value ties closely with the absence of Ertz. With Ertz likely to return this week, and with Nick Foles replacing Carson Wentz, Burton will not play a huge factor this coming week. Week 14 takeaways. A closer look. Each week we take a closer look at a handful of performances and sort out what such performances mean going forward. DeShone Kizer, QB, CLE 2028, 214 yards, 3 TDs, 2 INTs. Analysis. DeShone Kizer has had himself a rough rookie season, although that's not much of a surprise with the complete lack of stability within the Browns organization. He's been in and out of the lineup this year, and hasn't exactly had much help from his coach as are his teammates. Well, one key variable has changed. Star WR Josh Gordon has returned to the team, and Kizer now has a legit target who can win his matchups. While the Browns will likely draft a QB in the early rounds of the 2018 draft, that doesn't mean that Kizer can't provide you with QB help if you're in a massive pinch. Unfortunately, he faces a tough pass defense in the Ravens next week, so he's not an ideal option for Week 15. But if you're in a deep league and are in a bind at QB, know that Kizer will be tossing the ball around regardless next week. For those of you in dynasty leagues, Kizer has shown over the last month that he's got a chance to be a legit starting QB if he can find himself in the right scenario, so a potential move out of Cleveland could help him. Just worth keeping an eye on him in such league. Mike Davis, RB, C15 carries, 66 yards, 0 TDs. Analysis. The Seahawks have finally found themselves another running back who can move the chains. After having finally found themselves a running back who can move the chains early in the season, the former being Chris Carson, Davis helps in both the run and passing game, and also holds his own as a blocker on passing downs. Blocking ability leads to more time on the field on third downs, and as evidenced by Davis's 15 carries, he's the lead back for the Seahawks for the rest of the season. Davis followed up his 64-yard performance last week against the Eagles with 66 yards against the Jaguars, and next week he faces a Rams run D which struggles to stop the run. In case Davis remains available in your league, you should snag him immediately. He'll be an RB2 next week. Marquise Goodwin, WR, SF 6 catches, 106 yards, 0 TDs. Analysis. Marquise Goodwin found his way into the rapid-fire pickup list last week, and this week he has earned a featured spot in our analysis. With the ascension of QB Jimmy Garoppolo to the starting lineup, Marquise Goodwin has seized the role of lead WR for the 49ers. Garoppolo targeted Goodwin 12 times this past Sunday against the Texans, connecting on 6 of the throws for 106 yards. And Goodwin had 8 catches for 99 yards last week in Garoppolo's first start, so clearly there's a comfort level between the QB and WR. The 49ers face the Titans next week, and that's a juicy matchup for wide receivers. In case Goodwin's available in your league, you should certainly put in a claim for him, likely as your top WR ad. He'll be a solid WR3 flex option next week. Terrell Williams, WR, lack 4 catches, 132 yards. Want analysis after a very rough start in the new home. Go back to San Diego. The Chargers have turned it on over the last several weeks. The team has weapons galore on offense, and this week it was Terrell Williams' time to shine. Williams connected with Philip Rivers for a 75-yard TD pass, and caught all 4 of his targets en route to 132 yards receiving. The third-year WR from Western Oregon has solid ability, but tends to get lost among the Chargers' WR core, as does every WR other than Keenan Allen. Looking deeper at Williams' underlying stats, the primary concern lies with his number of targets from Rivers. While having been targeted 6 or more times in 3 of the first 4 weeks, Williams has only been targeted 6 or more times once in the last 9 games. When you're only targeted 35 times per week, your stats are obviously very reliant on every target resulting in a catch. That's not possible from week to week. So, while Williams is talented and had a great week, I'd recommend looking elsewhere for WR unless you are in a very deep league. Think 14 teams or more. Rapid-fire pickups. Each week we'll throw out potential free agent pickups from each position for deeper leagues, in each case someone who has not been referenced above, and a player available in most leagues. QB Jimmy Garoppolo, SFRB Theo Riddick, DETRB Peyton Barber, TBWR Tyler Lockett, SEAWR Dede Westbrook, JAXDE Eric Ebron, DTWIC 15 Rankings Quarterbacks Russell Wilson, C vs. Tom Brady, Neat Pitt Aaron Rodgers, GB Carr Cam Newton, Carr vs. GBBEN Roethlisberger, Pitt vs. No Philip Rivers, Lackett KCD Rubris, No vs. Nige Dak Prescott, Dal at Oak Matt Ryan, ATL at TB Matthew Stafford, Det vs. Chicker Cousins, was vs. Ars Jimmy Garoppolo, SF vs. 10 Case Keenum, Min vs. Kinnick Foles, 5 Nig Jared Goff, Larat C Blake Bortles, Jax vs. Huge Mice Winston, TB vs. Atlalix Smith, KC vs. Lack Marcus Mariota, 10 at SF Derek Carr, Oak vs. Dale running backs Le'Veon Bell, Pitt vs. Delazian McCoy, BUF vs. Maya Todd Gurley, Larat C Mark Ingram, No vs. Nigelvin Kamara, No vs. Nige Leonard Fournette, Jax vs. Melvin Gordon, Lackett KC Jordan Howard, Chiadit Devonta Freeman, ATL at TB Kenyon Drake, Mirat Buff Kareem Hunt, KC vs. Lack Carlos Hyde, SF vs. Tant Marshawn Lynch, Oak vs. Dal Christian McCaffrey, Carr vs. G. Balix Collins, Bal at Clejamal Williams, GB at Carlamar Miller, Howard Jax Alfred Morris, Dal at Oak Dion Lewis, Neat Pitt Latavius Murray, Min vs. Sinrex Burkhead, Neat Pitt Samaje Perrin, was vs. Ars Isaiah Crowell, CLE vs. Baldemarco Murray, 10 at SFJ at J, 5 Nike Joe Mixon, CIN at Min Frank Gore, IND vs. Dentheo Riddick, Det vs. Chimika Davis, C vs. Largerick McKinnon, Min vs. Sinkawan Williams, ARZ at WASC, J. Anderson, Denatin Peyton Barber, TB vs. At Tevin Coleman, ATL at TB Derrick Henry, 10 at SF Jonathan Stewart, Carr vs. GB Duke Johnson, CLE vs. Balrod Smith, Dal at Oak Bill Powell, NYJ at New Orleans Darkwa, NYG vs. Fee wide receiver Antonio Brown, Pitt vs. Julio Jones, ATL at TB Keenan Allen, Lack at KC Brandon Cooks, Neat Pitt Michael Thomas, No vs. Nige DeAndre Hopkins, Howard Jax Adam Thielen, Min vs. Chena, J. Green, CIN at Mine Doug Baldwin, C vs. Lardez Bryant, Dal at Oak Davante Adams, GB at Carr Larry Fitzgerald, ARZ at Washavas Landry, Mir at Bud Evan Funches, Carr vs. GB Tyreek Hill, KC vs. The Cordy Nelson, GB at Carr Josh Gordon, CLE vs. Bal Michael Crabtree, Oak vs. Dal Mike Evans, TB vs. At Marquise Goodwin, SF vs. Tant Marvin Jones, Det vs. Kilshawn Jeffrey, 5 Golden Tate, Det vs. Chide Marius Thomas Denatin Stephon Diggs, Min vs. Sir Jamison Crowder, was vs. Ars Marquis Lee, Jax vs. Hoosier Smith Schuster, Pitt vs. Neck Upa Cup, Larat Citris Hogan, Neard Pitt, Y. Hilton, IND vs. Dendeed Westbrook, Jax vs. Our Robbie Anderson, NYJ Adna Mohammed Sanu, ATL TB Robert Woods, Larat C. Sting Shepherd, NYG vs. Thippel Richardson, C vs. Lardisian Jackson, TB vs. Ad Mike Wallace, Ballard Clarishard Matthews, Tenet SF Tight Rob Gronkowski, Neard Pitt Travis Kelce, KC vs. Lachachurts, Fired Nike Jimmy Graham, C vs. La Hunter Henry, Lackett KCD Eleni Walker, Tenet Steven Ingram, NYG vs. For Kyle Rudolph, Min vs. Sin Jack Doyle, IND vs. Den Jason Witten, Dal Adokiad Cook, Oak vs. Dal Greg Olson, Carr vs. GB Cameron Brait, TB vs. Adler Eric Hebron, Det vs. Chivanan Davis was vs. Arts Triburton, Fired NYG Charles Clay, BUF vs. Mias Shivan Anderson, Howard Jacks Ricky Seals Hones, ARZ at Wasso, J. Howard, TB vs. Ad Defensive Special Teams Jacksonville Jaguars vs. Who Baltimore Ravens at Clen New Orleans Saints vs. Nye Minnesota Vikings vs. Sin Philadelphia Eagles at Nigdenver Broncos at In Buffalo Bills vs. Me Atlanta Falcons at TB Seattle Seahawks vs. Los Angeles Rams at C Los Angeles Chargers at KC Detroit Lions vs. Chi San Francisco 49ers vs. 10 Arizona Cardinals at Was Washington Redskins vs. ARZ